idea behind this museum is to provide new perspectives. One of them is a view of the historic center of Dresden, which was bombed by the Allies in the Second World War. The 5-story tall wedge structure is the centerpiece of the renovated German military museum.
The top of the wedge marks the exact spot that flare markers were dropped for British bombers. On the night of February 13, 1945, Dresden's historic center was completely destroyed. I think that's a powerful image. We can't talk simply of victims or perpetrators. The lines often merge. For those experiencing terrible things, it's irrelevant what side they're on, or whether they're Polish or German.
American architect Daniel Libeskind came up with the glass and steel wedge to shatter the pomp of the original historic structure, which was built as an arsenal. It was later turned into a military museum by the Nazis and was used for the same purpose in communist East Germany.
The new wedge-like form pushes through the opacity and the darkness and the rigidity of the armory to the outside. So does Germany push through its old regimes, its autocratic regimes, totalitarian regimes, towards a new window of freedom and democracy of united Germany.
Germany's military museum is now characterized more by a self-critical look at the art of warfare rather than the conventional celebration of battles and heroes. Missiles are displayed to reflect their purpose, to kill and maim. It reflects on the injuries the weapons cause and the prosthetic arms and legs the injured require. The museum designers are not afraid to provoke. This is a Wolf, a German army jeep that was hit by a roadside bomb in Afghanistan. 3 Bundeswehr soldiers were injured.
You could see it as a provocation because we're opening a door. We show the mission as it is. Some say the deployments have become much tougher, but I think ours is an honest approach.
The exhibition even names the members of the German parliament who voted to send German troops on the Afghanistan mission 10 years ago and are thus politically responsible.
This wolf is being contextualized with ballots from members of parliament, including Chancellors Angela Merkel and Gerhard Schröder. Visitors are integrated into the installation, into this display. It's the visitors who elect the politicians and therefore legitimize the mission in Afghanistan.
Anti-war activists are also part of the exhibition. This is a parody of a real army uniform. It was once worn by Petra Kelly, the late co-founder of the Greens Party. The museum organizers have faced repeated queries about whether this should even be in a military museum.
Some exhibits are challenging even for the staff. We've got twigs used by children in kindergarten as guns because their parents didn't let them have war-related toys. I find it fascinating because it shows where violence comes from and how the desire for violence emerges, even in families where the children have a pacifist upbringing.
Some people would call it more an anti-war museum. Those in charge talk instead of the cultural history of human violence. But what prompted the army to embark on this novel approach to military history?
If we're going to redefine the Military History Museum, then it can't be according to the old principles. As well as putting the individual at the center of our focus, we also take a critical stance on the whole topic. For us, that ultimately means we as soldiers of the German Bundeswehr do not put ourselves into question, but rather allow people to ask us questions.
And the answers are never easy. The devastating V-2 missile was developed by the Nazis and built using slave labor. Making the missiles cost more lives than firing them did. But the missiles were a major technological innovation, the kind of progress that society can benefit from in today's democracy.
of course, in a democracy, the military is very important. And this museum tells a story. What happens, why museums are important, military museums is important in a democracy. Because, of course, every citizen has the responsibility to understand what is going on. So it is not just a museum of conflicts, of weaponry, of the hardware, but it's a reflection on violence.
But the new museum also has plenty to interest traditional museum goers. There's a chronological narration of German military history since the Middle Ages, for example. For all the critical undertones, the new museum in Dresden is a military museum. It's bound to provoke debate and sometimes anger, but that's something those responsible for the museum have taken into account.